Good morning. Happy Thursday. I have something for you to think about. Now, this is interesting. Do you realize, as a society, as people, we catastrophize everything? We overthink, we jump to conclusions, we think the worst case scenario all the time. Why? Why do we work ourselves up into an absolute lather? And most times we're wrong. You get all kinds of upset. You end up with a headache, with heartburn. You're just a hot mess for nothing. Often this starts in childhood. Very, very often. Years ago, I worked with a family. Lovely people, a little misguided, but lovely people. The little boy, I want to say he was second grade-ish, whatever that would be. Very sweet child, kind of quiet, well-liked, had friends. Very bright child. Loved reading, loved math, loved science. Lovely child. The little boy was at school one day. In class, everything's going normal. The intercom comes on and it says that this little boy is to report to the office. You know, because we've all been in grammar school, we know how the class reacts. Oh, you're in trouble. I bet you're going to be suspended or expelled or, just, how kids are. They're a bunch of little reactive abusers. And once it starts, they feed off of each other's energy and it just gets worse and worse and worse. This child had never been in trouble at school, ever. Had a total meltdown, started crying. The teacher walked the child to the office, gets to the office, goes in the principal's office, sits down, and mom and dad are there. And the dad overreacted and said, I don't know what you've done, but you're in trouble. I'll tell you right now, you're already grounded for X amount of time, and they were supposed to go on a family outing. That's canceled now. And the child was just heartbroken and crying, just so, unconsolable. It was so sad. So the principal gets there, the teacher comes in, and the guidance counselor. The child was being placed in advanced reading class, math class, and science class. That's all it was. That's it. Nothing bad. Everybody overreacted. That poor child was just a hot mess because jumping to conclusions, assuming the worst, catastrophizing. The father felt foolish. The mother was relieved, but we were trying to work on the dad's temper and his relationship in the family, and it was a bit of an uphill battle, but we got there. So the child goes back to class, and the guidance counselor goes with him and explains to the class, with consent of the parents, of course, what transpired and how their reaction was not the right reaction. And she asked the little boy, tell them what happened. And the child told him that he was going into Mrs. XYZ's class for this and this and this. And everybody was really happy for him, and they were clapping and saying, good job and all that. And that's fine after the fact, but they should not have stirred the pot initially. So this starts in childhood. There are parents that always assume worst case scenarios, no matter what. It's the worst. So we are raised thinking worst case scenarios, just like this little boy. You're driving down the street as an adult. You're driving down the street, there's a policeman behind you. Your heart rate goes up. He flips on his lights and siren, your heart rate really goes up. You might start to perspire. You might start to panic. You might start to worry. You might accelerate. Why don't you just pull over, see what he wants? You don't know. Maybe your taillight's out. Maybe you're just going to get a warning. Nobody said you're going to get a ticket. Just wait and see. Stop overthinking, overanalyzing, jumping to conclusions. Stop. You don't know until you know. That's what I tell families. That's what I tell children. You don't know until you know. So don't assume you do know, because you don't. As adults, I see this so often, and I have been guilty of this myself. You don't want to go to the doctor because you assume bad things are going to be found out. You don't want to know. Don't want to know. Don't have time. You don't go to the dentist. Don't have time. Years ago, and many of you know I'm a survivor of breast cancer, my excuse was I was too busy to get a mammogram. I went for my physical every year, but I was too busy to go in for the mammogram. Until my doctor, who was a dear friend, I had my physical and I got dressed, and he said, come with me. I said, where are we going? He said, oh, just come with me. Where are we off to? He said, I already had the girls call. They're waiting for you in the building next door. You have a mammogram. Yeah, that's a good friend. That's a good doctor. Sneaky, but a good friend. I go over, okay, fine. I have the mammogram. I go back to work. That afternoon, I got a phone call. They found something. And so needle biopsies, tissue biopsies later, second opinions later, I ended up having chemo, of course, and a double mastectomy. These are not originals. But had I had it in the first place every year like I'm supposed to, I would not be in this position. I probably could have had a lumpectomy 4 years prior. But procrastination, being too busy, that falls on me. That's my fault. Don't put things off. Don't assume the worst. I know so many people that don't go to the doctor unless they have the flu or something because they don't want to know. Lots of people will not go to the dentist every 6 months like we're supposed to because they don't floss and they don't want to hear what the dentist has to say. No, they would rather wait until the periodontal disease, which correlates with heart disease, gets really out of control. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't jump to conclusions. You don't know until you know. Prophylactic care is amazing. It's there for a reason. Go to the doctor every year, every 6 months. Go to the dentist every 6 months. Do what you're supposed to do. Don't assume the worst. When it's time for your review at work, I hear this all the time. People panic. Many offices will give you a kind of a self-evaluation. People don't know how to fill it out. Just answer the question. Don't overanalyze it. Answer the question. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Just stop. Don't worry about what they're going to think when they read your answer. Just answer the question. What if they don't even read it? They just stick it in your file. Then you have upset yourself for 2 days for nothing. Answer the question. Don't overthink. When you go in for the review, go in with a positive attitude. You don't know what they're going to say. You don't know if they're going to rake you over the coals and chew you out, or if they're going to say, hey, you've done a really good job. Good performance. You get a bonus, whatever it is in your office. You don't know. So stop assuming that you do. You don't know. I've seen people called in to their supervisors, their manager, the partner's office. They're terrified. And they're being asked if they're interested in a promotion. All this time they were panicking and they're being promoted. You don't know until you know, so stop overanalyzing. When your spouse says they want to talk, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, we need to talk. Do not assume it's a bad thing. Maybe they're wanting to talk about vacation plans, about painting the house, putting in a garden, buying a puppy or a cat. You don't know until you know, so stop yourself. Stop. Stop thinking the worst case scenario. I'm not saying they don't exist. Lord knows they do. But you are what you think. If you start thinking all the negative, you're going to become a negative person. You're going to make yourself sick, worrying about all the negative scenarios that are possible. Overanalyzing, overthinking. I know. I used to be this way. I would get a text, and text messages are the worst because you don't know someone's tone. You don't know how they're saying it and exactly what's said. And you start thinking, okay, what if they meant it this way or that way or this way? And you can drive yourself nuts. And you're probably wrong. So stop. Take a breath. Please. Please. and start looking at the best case scenarios. Teach your children. Let's look at the best case scenario. When you're taking a test, look at the best case scenario. Well, don't look at it as, well, what if I get a C? What if I get a D? What if I fail? No. What if I pass? What if I get a better grade than I ever could have thought? Teach them to be positive. Teach yourself to be positive. These are learned behaviors, which means they can be unlearned. Think positive. Best case scenario. It's okay to plan for the worst because you never know, but hope for the best. Plan for the best. Think of the best. No more overanalyzing. I'm tired of seeing people come in worked up with migraines and ulcers and heartburn and heart disease and gastritis because they stress themselves out. You're doing it to yourself. It's self-sabotage. It's self-destructive. It's in your control to stop that. So stop that. Let's be more positive, okay? You don't know until you know. Plain and simple.